We're looking at poetry, figurative language, and structure techniques. Now, to be clear, figurative language and structural techniques, those are in all types of writing, but our focus today is on poetry specifically, because that's where they're most commonplace, and we'll look at some habits specifically on how to annotate them in poetry. We've said before, poetry has two reads, literal and figurative. The second one, figurative, that's our focus for today. But first, what do figurative language and structure mean? In literature, figurative language is language that does not have a normal, everyday, literal meaning. It's used by writers for dramatic effect or for the sake of comparison to deepen understanding. And structure, that's the arrangement, form, or organization of a literary composition, how it's put together. Here are a handful of some of the most common. There are a bunch of figurative language techniques and structural tools, but these are some of the more common ones we'll encounter. You do not need to try to memorize this whole table or anything, but if you'd like to pause the video or come back to it and look at it again, by all means, that could be helpful. If you want to watch this video, or if you'd like to look at a reference that shows some figurative language and structural techniques with definitions and examples, you can find it all on the English Basics one-pager. It's on the classwork page under additional materials, as you see right here. Now, when you're logging figurative notes, as we said, that's on the second read. So you should only do that after your first read. In other words, you should only do it after you've already read the poem and jotted down any literal notes that you have. So how does it look? Here are the three columns of poetry reading. You should have filled the ones on the left. It says, and I say, before you move to that one on the right for figurative language and structure. So let's see how it might look. We'll base it off an example from a poem we already read, Eating Poetry. You see right here, in this column, I already have a more literal note here. The speaker is happy to be reading poetry at the beginning of this poem. But wait, there's also some figurative language. Ink runs. Interesting. I know ink can't run. That's personification. Any language that gives human characteristics or traits to non-human things, that's personification. And you see the arrow there pointing to the highlight, PER. That's an abbreviation for personification. Use those abbreviations in your notes. It'll save you time, space, and it'll just look neater. And you can see right here in the table where we list a bunch of figurative and structural techniques. All of these techniques have abbreviations listed under the full name. Okay, so let's look at what the actual figurative note might be. I'm just showing you this column so we can break it down. 3 steps, 3 components. First, we already did it together. See the technique, right? Identify the figurative language or structure device. That's personification. That's what I write first, or the abbreviation, PER. Second, name the comparison. In other words, what comparison does the figurative language make? Or how is it used? So for here, that's this part. Ink is running. That's how it's used. We've done the easy part, identifying the figurative language. Now is the hardest part. Step 3, interpret the meaning. What deeper understanding does the figurative language or structure technique give me? What does it add to my literal understanding? Why did the author choose this particular technique here? So I think what it adds to me is that the speaker is not only happy, as I had in my literal note, but this idea of ink running, that really develops the speaker's sense of excitement and energy. So that's my note here. So you'd want to think to yourself, again, how does this figurative or structural tool deepen my understanding? What does it add? And why did the author choose this particular word choice or technique right here? The author could have said the ink dribbled, or the ink walked, or the ink moved. He could have chose any word. Why running? Oh, that really emphasizes the energy, the enthusiasm. That was my thought process as I looked at that word. And again, use those abbreviations, not just PER for personification, but all of them. So you see right here, we'll get more familiar with it. This is a look at my total notes here for the entire poem. I used an M for metaphor, speakers compared to a dog. I use JUX for juxtaposition. That really contrasts the librarian and the speaker. And these notes here, personification, metaphor, juxtaposition, those notes really helped me arrive at my final theme, which was ultimately reading poetry can be an enthusiastic joy that others might not fully appreciate. These notes gave me a sense of the speaker's excitement, but also his disconnect from the librarian. Again, this video, or if you want to look back at a reference that shows some of these techniques, their abbreviations, their definitions, examples, you can find them on the English Basics one-pager. We've just looked at poetry and how to break down figurative language and structural techniques. Thanks for watching.